Let's go to our correspondent in Washington now, Philip Crowther, joining me. So, Philip, how did this release come about?
It's a great success story, this one, for the US president and his team. This has been in the works for quite a while. As soon as there was that possibility announced of a meeting between the US president and the North Korean leader, that was an invitation from Kim Jong-un that was accepted by US President Donald Trump. Since then, the fate of these 3 Korean Americans who've been held in North Korea for differing periods of time, one since 2015, the others for a much shorter period, that has been discussed at length and was brought up, in fact, by Rudy Giuliani, of all people, the US president's legal advisor, over the last few days. What's clearly happening here is that this is a transaction, if you will, a deal as part of a wider deal, the wider deal being getting Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un to sit down together and to have those talks. The US government has been getting a lot of concessions from the North Koreans in the run-up to that possible meeting. Those concessions being no nuclear tests since that possibility of a meeting was first invoked, also no missile tests, and add to that now the liberation of 3 American citizens from prisons in North Korea. That is quite significant, of course, for the families and for the US government. Of course, what North Korea gets in exchange for that is a meeting with the US president, which is, of course, unprecedented. A very successful trip, a very short trip for the new Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. He met in Pyongyang with Kim Jong-un, according to that same tweet from the US president. And that meeting was so successful, according to Donald Trump, that the date and the time for that meeting with Kim Jong-un are now very much set in stone. He won't tell us, though, where and when this will happen.
Philip, South Korea says that this release of 3 American prisoners will have a positive effect on that summit, that upcoming summit between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump.
Yes, undoubtedly it will, because it is part of a coordinated effort, of course, on behalf of the 2 teams, the Americans and the North Koreans. And of course, the Japanese and the South Koreans are involved in these talks as well, to make this look as good as possible and to make it look possible in the very first place. So all of this is a staggered series of measures that the North Koreans are taking to make that meeting very much possible with the US president. It really looks like this is going to go ahead, and it bears remembering how extraordinary this truly is, that a US president will be traveling to, we don't know where yet, it might well be Singapore, Mongolia was also discussed, but a US president traveling to that location to meet with Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, the North Korean dictator, after all, is something extraordinary and something that hasn't happened in the past. During this Trump administration, there might have been some foreign policy decisions on some fronts that haven't helped the United States, if you will, but this one is quite extraordinary and something that previous administrations have never managed to achieve. Of course, the real conclusions will only come after those talks between Trump and Kim Jong-un. What will they talk about? Well, presumably what the United States wants from North Korea. That is the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. That is a very big ask, and we'll have to wait and see what happens during that meeting. Again, the US president says a date and a location are set, and he also, by the way, says that at 2 a.m. in the morning tomorrow, here local time, the US President Donald Trump will be at the air base where the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will be landing with those 3 now former prisoners of North Korea.